Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa Tang, a graduate student from the MIT D-Lab. D-Lab has been working on a project on livable Himalayan homes in collaboration with the University of Petroleum and Energy Studies in Dehradun and the Institute of Chemical Technology in Mumbai. Here are some of our results from preliminary household surveys from communities in the Himalayas. First of all, I would like to thank all of our team members from each of the three institutions and from our implementing partners. The Himalayan region is home to 50 million people, many of which live in dispersed remote communities. The region has a harsh climate with cold winters, and these communities frequently have limited access to products and services. Through remote monitoring of sensors placed in houses, D-Lab has found that indoor temperatures in the winter can regularly drop to below 5 degrees Celsius, and that household air pollution can reach 50 to 500 times the safe level. The overall objective of D-Lab's work in the Himalayas is to understand energy challenges and work with these communities to identify, evaluate, and co-design solutions. These preliminary surveys were conducted to better understand community attitudes and practices on cooking and heating. These results were taken from 3 different locations, 2 in the state of Uttarakhand in India and 1 in Nepal. The most recent set of surveys were taken in December 2020 in the Chakrata area of Uttarakhand. 15 households from 3 different villages were surveyed. In January 2017, surveys were done in the Yukamath area, also in Uttarakhand, and there 70 households from 2 different villages were surveyed. And in January 2018, 33 households in the village of Salambu, Nepal were surveyed. These communities were rural and agricultural, and their altitudes ranged from 1,600 meters to 2,200 meters. Households surveyed in the 3 different communities all had traditional firewood stoves available for cooking, and these took a variety of forms. Some households had 3-stone fires. Others had 3-legged iron pot holders, like the one seen in the left photo, taken in Salambu, Nepal. In Chakrata, India, most households had a traditional chulha stove made out of mud or stone, the design of which can be seen in the 2 right photos. Many of these households did have other fuels available for cooking, namely liquefied petroleum gas, or LPG, and electricity. Salambu did not have many households with LPG access, but from these graphs here, you can see that Yukamath and Chakrata had a majority of households with LPG stoves available for cooking. However, in Yukamath, 90% of the households still primarily used wood for cooking, and in Chakrata, all of the surveyed households did. These households reported that sometimes they used LPG to make tea or other small items with short cooking times, but they always used firewood for rice and other more energy-intensive staple foods. This can be attributed to the higher cost of LPG and also the remoteness of the villages, making it difficult to purchase and transport LPG cylinders. One important finding of our survey is that for many households, these firewood cook stoves are the only source of indoor heating. This means that improved cooking solutions must also address the problem of winter heating. All of the households reported requiring heating in the fall and winter months, and when households in Chakrata were asked about their seasonal fuel use, they reported that the firewood they burned in their stoves increased in the winter due to the heating requirement. Cooking and heating are both major sources of household air pollution in these communities. The left graph shows data of particulate matter levels that were taken from Yukamath, Uttarakhand for 24 hours. You can see that the particulate matter levels peaked in the morning and the evening, each for a few hours after quick stove use. Household air pollution also coincides with winter heating. Residents in Chakrata were asked about seasonal variation and household air pollution, and they stated that the pollution was worse in the winter months. The Chakrata surveys also provided more insights into households' cooking routines and practices. And I will now pass the presentation to my colleague Arnav, who worked more closely on developing the Chakrata surveys.
Thanks, Lisa. So we asked the Chakrata communities more specific questions about their use of the chula. And as you can see in the graph here, the chula usually is operated once in the morning and once in the evening, coinciding with meals. Some households having a midday meal as well, as you can see in that third peak in the middle of the graph. The use of the chula also fulfilled daily heating needs because of early mornings and late evenings. Households could have their necessary heat when they were cooking their meals. And also, the use of the chula coincided very much with the levels of particulate matter, which coincides very well with the graph in the previous slide. We also asked the Chakrata communities more about the materials and their maintenance practices for the chula. And what we found was that chula repairs usually happened on average every 4.5 months, with the new chula being built every 2 to 3 years when an old one was broken, or if there was a festival or another auspicious occasion. We found that women usually build the chula, although we did have one household say that their chula was built by both genders. And we also asked households to list off the different materials they used to build their chula. Most of the chulas were built with local materials and built by those households. The list here is not a list of all the materials necessary to build a chula, although a mix of these provide what's necessary. Some materials provide the structure, such as the mud and the stone. Some provide bindings, such as goat hair and starch. And cow urine is used for religious and auspicious reasons, as well as a disinfectant, which they use every morning. We also asked households in Chakrata their opinions on their current cooking setup. Most of the households commented about how the chula provides food that tastes much better than other cooking sources. And many also commented on how building the chula is practically free because households can just gather the materials locally and by themselves and build it by themselves. However, a lot of the households also commented that smoke and particulate matter usually posed a problem when using the chula, and that oftentimes they found the amount of wood they were using for the chula more than they would like. So, as you can see here, there are a lot of positives and a lot of negatives, but those were the big highlights here. As a whole, many Himalayan communities prefer their traditional firewood cook stove setups, which means that there are quite a few potential barriers towards what we would consider safer and healthier homes. Finding solutions to address some of the household concerns regarding pollution or energy efficiency requires us to also provide solutions that rival the low cost and ease of maintenance of traditional stoves and firewood, address the role of some of these cooking setups, like the chula, in traditions and cultural importance. Some of the solutions we may find may require access to markets, products, and services, which many of these communities lack. So we need to consider that as well. And lastly, we also need to consider the interconnected nature of cooking and heating, where the cooking setup also provides heating for many of the households. So there are a lot of these barriers, which is why we are continuing to work through our next steps through a literature review to see what solutions currently exist and what findings already are out there, conducting more stakeholder interviews. We're also planning to set up some sensors in some of the Chakrata households to monitor indoor comfort and particulate and pollution. And finally, we hope all of this will help us do a follow-up survey in the spring where we can ask more pointed questions as well as potentially gauge community receptiveness to potential solutions. Thank you for coming to our presentation. You can reach our group at the email address here, himalayan@mit.edu. We're looking forward to chatting about our findings and walking through next steps. Thank you.